You're listening to Murder Not Murdering with Erin,
and Autumn,
a true crime podcast about murder and murdering.
but we are not murderers.
And we are back at Murder Not Murdering with Erin.
And Autumn.
That's us.
We are murderful friends.
You keep trying to make fetch happen. I don't know. We said the true crimers one for a hot minute.
I know. And then I forgot about the murderful friends.
Yeah. I mean, that one's cute too.
I mean, I feel like we can just call us whatever we want to call us.
I think that's a good plan. Also, it is a beautiful sunny day in Seattle.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Autumn's not in Seattle, but it is beautiful. I went down to Alki Beach today to have some lunch, and it was just so gorgeous out. It's sunny. It's like 65, more, maybe hotter. The most Washington thing ever, though, is there were people literally in swimsuits and going into the 40-degree water. What are you doing?
People are insane.
I do not get
I understand like 65, 70 degrees. I do get warmer, but I am not hopping in that water at that temperature.
No, and it's cold as hell. And it's also down by the beach. It gets even colder. Like it's a much cooler breeze. It's kind of crazy. I'm a big lover of the dark and gray days too, but this is nice.
I'm a dark and gray kind of girl.
Yeah, I like the overcast. I know that some people are like, it's so depressing, but I think it feels cozy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes me want to like cuddle up and drink some tea and read a book and chill.
I like to layer. I'm not necessarily into like unlayering, and I run kind of warm. So yeah, the hot weather is just not my best friend.
Hey, have you watched there's a TV channel that is all it's I heard a beeping.
That was Dustin leaving for the gym. He's getting to be a buff grandpa.
Ooh.
That's literally what his shirt says. And he wears this hat every single day that says promoted to grandpa. I kid you not. He wears it to work. He wears it everywhere.
He's very excited.
Very excited. Anytime we're shopping and I can't find Dustin, I just have to go to the baby clothes section because he has a handful of them. He cannot stop buying the baby clothes. And finally, I had to tell him, you've had a child, sir. You know that he's never going to wear all of these outfits. So why don't we start remembering how old he's going to be during what season and buy them in the future? So he started to do that. But I mean, who am I to say? He's like, it's just $7. And I'm like, who am I to say no? Like, whatever, buy it.
Yeah. I think the thing to remember, though, is babies wear things for like 3 months at a time.
Yes.
Right. They grow fast. And
so fast.
And you do have to think about the weather. So you can't be buying like 9-month things right now because it'll be all summer stuff.
Yes. So we had that talk, and I can't help myself either. I just bought the baby some shoes. Is the baby even gonna walk? No, but they said chomp on them, and they were alligators.
You gotta chomp when you gotta chomp.
Freaking couldn't resist.
Yeah, I mean, baby clothes are cute.
They are so cute. But what were you asking me? What show?
Oh, they have a whole TV channel dedicated to unsolved mysteries.
Erin.
It's unsolved mysteries 24 hours a day.
I told you about that channel.
Well, I just saw it for the first time yesterday, and I put it on, and
I told you that was
it was very relaxing.
I told you that is literally the only channel that plays in my house. And Dustin has my ringtone as the Unsolved Mysteries. And he told me that I needed to join the Addicts Anonymous for Unsolved Mysteries because that's the channel I put on all day, every day, all day.
Well, I don't do that.
I fall asleep to it, everything.
I fall asleep to Murder, She Wrote. I've seen every episode, so I'm like,
I've never really been into that show. And I know that's like awful because I know you love Angela Lansbury, but I just have never been able to get into it.
I'm a JB Fletcher fan for life.
Was that her name in the show?
Yeah.
JB Fletcher.
That's what she goes. That's her author name, but her real name is Jessica. My favorite thing is in every single episode, someone's like, "Oh, are you JB Fletcher, the writer?" It's just so funny because
who knows that?
They just like randomly walk up to her and like, "Hey, are you JB Fletcher, the writer?" It's just over and over again, all the things. There's so many nuances that makes me just love that show. Plus, it's like the murder capital of the world, I swear. There are more murders that happen in Cabot Cove than any other place. Also, everywhere she travels, everything she does, and somehow she just like walks into a crime scene and starts talking to a detective, and you're like, wait a minute, hold up. And then the detective will be like, wait, are you JB Fletcher, the writer? Oh, big fan of your books. It just kills me. I love it. So Autumn, I know that you go first this week, and one of the things that we all we ever do is we've talked about before, we give each other trigger warnings if there's anything that we need to tell each other. But one thing you said you were doing a very local case, and I am also doing a very local case. Love that.
Mine's so local, there's not even a Wikipedia.
Whoa. I love a little Pacific Northwest murder mystery.
Me too. Too.
Just like Cabot Cove, we have plenty of murders to solve.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I am.
We're just going to call you E. E-S.
No, you can stop there. That's good enough. But I'm really excited. I'm excited for these local cases. I love I feel like I exhausted so many of the older local cases. It's becoming harder for me to find ones that have enough information because
yes, it's really hard for that part.
It's really hard for the research side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just, you'll get like 2 articles and then no follow-up or not enough information to go off of that will sustain an episode, right?
100%.
And the recording part not the recording part, but the research part is such a massive part of what we do.
This one took me a bit because I wanted to get any and all new information that I could. Because it's an older case. Yeah,
I spent quite a bit of time on it too. It's a labor of love. This is what we do because it's fun for us. You know, it's a passion project, AKA we need more listeners.
$3.99.
Please tell your friends.
Our TikTok is doing better.
Our TikTok is doing better.
You're going to hear a little noise because I am going to open TikTok.
Oh, that's...
And so that I can see you, because I want to know how many views we have. I posted twice today to see what that would do.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything.
JK. We don't know what we're doing.
Oh, man. Okay, so that did worse than I thought. I literally posted twice today, and one video got 26 views, and the other one has 0, so not even a single soul has seen that one.
Okay. Well, listen,
one
follow
of them
us.
Has 988 though, so I don't know what I did there, but man,
here's the deal.
They're good, but I guess not.
I think what it is that you have to learn like the algorithms and stuff. Like there's just so much that I just don't. It's hard for me to spend the time and energy into learning all of that.
Well, man, I'm too old for that. Like, no way.
So I say, folks, you want to get more out of this podcast, then log on to TikTok and follow us at MNPodcast. mm.pod. And you will find all of our TikToks.
Yes.
Like, comment, share, etc. Follow us on Instagram too. And please just share with people. Just say, hey, I heard a crazy story the other day. You should listen to my friend's podcast. Call us your friends. Even if we are not friends, we are your friends.
We are murderful friends.
We are murderful friends. So tell everybody you know. Because we would love to have some more listeners, and that will help us make a little bit of cash so that we can pay for our studio.
Cash money.
We got to pay for this shit. It ain't for free. Anyway, why don't we jump right in, Autumn?
I'm going to jump right in. And you'll know this story the minute I start talking about it. Not everybody knows this part that lives outside of the Pacific Northwest, but I'm pretty sure that anyone that lives in the Pacific Northwest has heard this story.
Ooh, I wonder which one it is.
Even though there's like no Wikipedia or anything, but you'll know it as soon as I start talking about it.
Okay, let's do this.
Today's story is a little different from the others I've told before. It's extremely local to us, which makes it personal in a way that's hard to explain. This is the story of a little girl named Teekah Lewis, a toddler who vanished from a bowling alley in Tacoma, Washington in 1999, and a mystery that for more than 2 decades has haunted the Pacific Northwest. And I think once you hear what happened, you'll understand why. Do you know who she is?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Maybe if I see a picture, I'd be like, yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Then I'm getting her story out there. Teekah Lewis was born on July 4th, 1996, a firecracker baby, to her mother, Teresa English, and her father, Robert Lewis. She was multiracial, Black, white, and Native American, Chippewa to be exact, on her mom's side. As a toddler, Teekah was treated for asthma and allergies at a native clinic in Puyallup, and while her life was still just beginning, it was clear early on she was a quiet, loving child. Shy, clingy in the sweetest way, a total mama's girl. Teresa said she wouldn't go outside on her own, would cry if she wasn't with her mom or her blankie. If one of those two was missing, it didn't matter how many other people were around. Teekah didn't like being picked up by strangers or even people she barely knew. She wasn't bold. She wasn't the type to wander off, and that's important. Really important. Because on the night of January 23rd, 1999, just before 10:30 p.m., Teekah vanished without a trace. It happened at New Frontier Lanes, a busy bowling alley in Tacoma, not far.
Been there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
No, it's not far from Cheney Stadium. Teekah's family was there with about a dozen relatives, filling lanes 7 and 8. It was league night. The place was packed, and 2-year-old Teekah kept wandering between their group and the arcade, particularly a claw machine and a racing game called Cruisin' World. She had a little clear purse with a fish design, filled with quarters and starbursts, her favorite.
Oh,
isn't that so cute?
That is so cute.
One of her uncles had even helped her win a teddy bear, which she gave to her baby sister.
No, what a sweetie.
I know. She everything I hear about her, she was just so sweet. Teekah was being supervised closely. The family had been taking turns watching her, but in the span of maybe 10 to 15 seconds, the kind of time it takes to look away and look back again, Teekah was gone. Teresa had turned to check on her brother, who was bowling, and when she looked back toward the arcade, nothing. No Teekah, no sound, no sight of that clear little purse or her green Tweety Bird shirt. And then came the panic. They searched the arcade. They searched the bowling alley. Teresa ran to the bathroom, but Teekah wasn't there. An off-duty officer joined her, and together they alerted the staff. An announcement went out, but the bowlers just kept bowling. It was cold outside, just above freezing. Teekah hadn't been wearing a coat. She was scared of the dark. And again, she didn't wander off. Not alone. Not without her blanket, and not without her mom. Police were called quickly. They arrived around 10:30 p.m. and began searching. At first, they thought she might have just walked away. But by morning, they knew something was wrong. Teekah was listed as endangered missing. Foul play was suspected, and a full-scale investigation was launched. Over the next few days, search dogs, helicopters, and volunteers canvassed the area. 2 search dogs independently led investigators across the street from the bowling alley to a patch of brush. There, under a bush, they found a pile of freshly discarded men's clothing. A pea coat, jeans, and a plaid shirt. They weren't moldy, and they weren't weathered. Police believed they hadn't been there long, and they considered it evidence. By the end of the first week, Teekah's parents, including her father Robert, who was in prison at the time, were cleared as suspects. So were other family members. Investigators began to zero in on something far more frightening: the possibility of a stranger abduction.
That's awful.
Now, to put that into context, in the late 90s, of the hundreds of thousands of children reported missing each year, only about 200 to 300 were believed to have been taken by strangers. It was, and still is, incredibly rare, but all signs pointed to it. And then, more stories started to surface. A woman reported nearly being hit by a speeding maroon Pontiac Grand Am that night, fishtailing out of the bowling alley parking lot. A teenage boy told police he'd seen a suspicious-looking man, white, in his 30s, with pock-marked skin and shoulder-length brown hair, standing near the exit, watching a child. And then came the patterns. In the 2 months leading up to Teekah's disappearance, there had been multiple attempted abductions involving a man matching that same description. One was a sexual assault in the very same arcade bathroom in November of '98. Another was an attempted abduction where a stranger claimed to be the little boy's father and tried to lead him away. That stranger was chased off before police could be called. And on the same day Teekah vanished, a man was seen at a nearby park trying to lure 2 children into his car. A car that looked very much like a dark-colored Grand Am. But even with those leads, no arrests were made. No persons of interest were named, and still no sign of Teekah. Years passed. In 2006, a private investigator thought they'd found a girl in Texas who resembled Teekah. Same age, same ears even. But DNA test results ruled her out. And eventually, most of the tips stopped coming. The bowling alley where Teekah disappeared was torn down. A Home Depot sits there now. But Teekah's mother, Teresa, never gave up. She held vigils every year. She had submitted her DNA to ancestry sites. She posted age-progressed photos on Facebook, pages dedicated to finding her daughter, and she kept the hope alive. In 2020, over 20 years after that night, a cold case detective reviewing old tips found something remarkable.
Oh, thank God.
A witness who was 17 at the time of Teekah's disappearance said he had an odd encounter that night. A white man, rude and in a rush, bumped into him near the bathroom, holding a little girl who was mixed. He thought it was just a father hurrying his daughter along, but a few days later, when the news broke, he realized what he'd seen. He had contacted police back then, but somehow his statement had gotten buried and not followed up on. When the cold case detective re-interviewed him, his description matched another witness. Pockmarked face, brown curly hair, mustache, a big nose, and again, possibly driving that same Pontiac Grand Am. Even stranger, another person recalled that same man behaving oddly during the filming of an America's Most Wanted reenactment about Teekah's case.
No.
Yes. That tip, too, had been filed but not connected. Not until decades later. I mean, come on.
For real. But I mean, I think a missing child, though, I could see how things could get a little bit buried just by so many different witnesses and all the other things that these are just small parts of the statement, but that's literally their job to investigate.
Mm-hmm. And especially if people are describing the same person.
Yeah. The
like,
connections.
Yes, the connections. Detectives now believe this individual may have been local to Tacoma, someone from the Fircrest or Oakland neighborhoods. And while they haven't released his name, they've shown a photo of him to Teresa, who said she recognized him from the night Teekah disappeared.
No way.
Today, Teekah would be in her late 20s. She was last seen wearing a green Tweety Bird shirt, white sweatpants, and a black and white Air Jordans. She had black hair with red highlights, facial dimples, eczema spots, and a large birthmark on her left buttocks. She carried a clear fish purse filled with quarters and starbursts. If she's still alive, she may not even know who she was taken. She may not know her real name, but her family is still waiting and still hoping, and so am I. If you have any information, anything at all about what happened to Teekah Lewis, or if you lived in the Tacoma area around January of 1999 and remember something unusual, please contact Tacoma Police or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477. Tips can be anonymous, and the smallest piece of information might be the one that finally leads to answers, because Teekah deserves them, and so does her family. My sources were Unsolved Podcast, Unresolved Podcast, The Charlie Project, The Seattle Times, King 5 Unsolved Northwest, Medium, Como 4 News, Fox 13 Seattle, America's Most Wanted, and NBC News.
You know, when we were talking about this case, I looked it up really quick because I assumed I would know from the picture, and absolutely I do.
Mm-hmm. It was huge.
And once you started talking about the bowling alley and everything, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember. And we will post pictures of the age progressions.
Yes.
On our Instagram page. You just never know. You really
never know.
Someone, it might either A, jog someone's memory, or B, you know,
what if it's you?
What if it's you? I mean, because if she was so little, you could, you know, there's like kind of Stockholm syndrome, you know, she just be like, oh, you were adopted and this is how you live now, you know?
Well, not only that, but it's scientific evidence. You don't form real memories until you're 3 or 4, and she was only 2.
Yeah.
So she could 100% be around and with a family or a man who's told her that that's her, like he's her dad, or honestly, I don't know what the situations are.
Sure.
But I truly hope this little girl has lived a good life despite the circumstances,
and for her family. Yeah. And for her family to have answers. That just open-ended is so difficult.
It's so difficult. And I truly, not even kidding you, think about this case a lot. Like the fact that the parents were like, the mother was so watchful and her family was so watchful. She took her eyes off her child for 15 seconds.
Yeah, that'll be a nightmare.
That is the worst. That's the worst nightmare a parent could ever imagine.
I'm literally going to have nightmares about this. There's no questions about that.
No, I mean, honestly, Killian is 23 years old and I do not sleep if I don't know like he's safe, you know, like I've learning to let go of that, but no matter how old your child is, you're always worried about them.
Yeah, of course.
And imagine not knowing where your child is for over 20 something years.
No, that's awful. I really hope our family finds some sort of resolution. And
me too.
Here's the deal. If anything ever happens, we will make sure to keep you posted.
Absolutely.
Well, my case.
Sorry, it was kind of a bummer, but honestly, the more we talk about it, you just never know.
You never know. And because we are local to this case, the likelihood of someone from this area being able to hear it through us too is higher, just specifically because we are in the Pacific Northwest. So I have hope.
I do. I do too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that you really brought us down.
Are you going to bring us down further or are you going to bring us up?
Well, I'm bringing us down further.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. I'm also doing a very local case. Literally so local that it is about, I'd say, 15 minutes away from where I live.
I'm here for this.
All right, here we go. I'm not going to do a title for this one. I am just going to start. It's 1975 in Seattle, Washington. It's a time of rapid growth and rapid change. Washington voters passed a state equal rights amendment in 1972. The state's law schools graduated their first big class of female lawyers. Starbucks was just a single storefront on Western Avenue. And on June 29, 1974, about 200 attended a picnic at Occidental Park in Pioneer Square for the first Gay Pride Week. The city council voted to build the Seattle Aquarium, and work had just begun on the Kingdome. Bill Gates and Paul Allen launched a small business called Microsoft, and the NFL had just selected Seattle for a new franchise, making the way for our beloved Seattle Seahawks.
I'm a big football fan.
Yeah, Autumn is. I am not. While things were moving and shaking, an underbelly was rising. The late 60s tried to get a hold on illegal gambling and racketeering. They had gone toe-to-toe with Frank Colicurcio Sr., and he was convicted of racketeering, conspiracy, and importing illegal bingo cards into Washington. That name might sound...
Bingo cards? What?
It was a huge deal. Yeah, bingo. So I've been researching this a lot. Bingo and also pinball was a massive gambling crazy ring that was happening in Seattle. I could go on and on about it, as I am currently building an arcade. So that's a new thing that's coming to my business soon. And as we've been building the arcade, I've been researching pinball. And in the late 60s, there was this huge situation that happened with gambling, pinball, and bingo. It's kind of crazy.
That is insane.
And you might have known that name, Frank Colicurcio Sr., because both him and his son were very heavily in the news in the 2000s for basically paying off politicians for their nude clubs because they're like well known for
his name.
They own Rick's and a bunch of other places.
I was about to say Rick's and all of
so you
places.
would absolutely know of that name. It's synonymous in Seattle as essentially the mafia in Seattle. Today's episode, though, is about Frank Leon Hinkley, who opened Seattle's first topless club. And
risque.
And I kind of giggled because he was born on February 14th, 1930. Valentine's Day.
Hey, Teekah was born on July 4th.
Yeah.
And he was these
holidays. Weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So Frank Hinkley, whose nickname was Sharkey, was a former boxer and cab driver who'd also had a career in the restaurant business. He is considered to be the man that brought topless dancing to Seattle by opening the Lucky Lady in 1970 and the Bear Cave a few years later, which, by the way, I think the Bear Cave sounds like a really fun gay club. Just saying. The Bear Cave was a topless bar that was on East Marginal Way South, just south of the Seattle city limits. It was a notorious bar. County police and prosecutors sought to close the Bear Cave after police made 98 arrests there.
Shit.
Mostly for lewdness in less than 2 years. The tavern lost its liquor license in April 1975, but Frank kept the Bear Cave open, making it the state's first soda pop club, serving up topless dancing with soft drinks. He was a real innovator there.
Yeah.
Seattle has a pretty rough history of these lewdness laws that literally went away only last year, where there was a huge issue that happened where they were going into many of the gay bars in all of Seattle, full on with flashlights and everything, making sure people weren't showing too much skin. We had to have nipples covered and, in a bar, a guy with his shirt off. It's just so ridiculous and archaic, and we're all fucking adults, so who the fuck cares? And the women that were out, the dancers, there was not a necessity. It's not like you didn't know what you were walking into, right? Let these girls make their money. Let's stop making this such a thing. And honestly, it felt very discriminatory. So it was a huge deal that happened. One of my friend's bars got raided. It was just awful. And I'm so glad that all of us business owners and so many people in the community stood up to the Liquor Control Board, and we got those lewdness rules taken down. So don't fuck with us. Anyway. Yeah, I went a little far on that one. Anyway, there were a lot of accounts, though, of blatant prostitution, and it was heavily encouraged for the women that worked there to have sex with the clientele. It was well known that they had a back room that had a light that would illuminate if the police were doing a raid. So the people would know to stop what they were doing and get the hell out of there. This was an extra revenue stream, though, for Frank. He had the Lucky Lady, a towing business, and the Bear Cave. And that made a sudden change for his family. Frank Hinkley and Barbara Rosenfeld were both divorced, and they both had children from their previous marriages. Frank had a son, Frank Jr., and Barbara had a daughter, Susie. The couple had first met at Seattle's Broadway High School, but then they went their separate ways. They were reunited in the summer of 1975, and they decided to move their families in together. The influx of income allowed for the family to move to a new home in the University Colony neighborhood of Edmonds, Washington. We had a brand new house with a swimming pool and a jacuzzi, said Frank Hinkley Jr. to the Seattle Times. There were 2 new cars in the driveway, and both of them were Cadillacs. It was the first time I was ever able to go out and get new clothes. Sometimes, Susie and Frank recalled that they would accompany their parents to the club when it was closed, and they would play music on the jukebox and shoot pool. Unfortunately, Being involved in illegal activities sparked some alleged turf wars, and the underworld definitely reached Frank as the Lucky Lady burnt down in 1974 due to arson. And not long after that, his towing company also had the same fate. He still had the bear cave, though, and the insurance companies would pay out for those arsons.
Suspicious.
Yeah. Either someone burnt them. So the theory is either someone burnt them down as a retaliation, or there's an insurance thing happening there. But he had successful businesses, so I think it's that it was for retaliation. Anyway, on the night of November 3rd, 1975, yep, Frank Sr., and that's a date that means something to me in Autumn, Frank Sr. and Barbara left the kids at home to watch a movie, and they went to the Bear Club to do some paperwork. That was the last time their children would ever see them. In the morning hours, Sheriff Deputy Zolt Dornay was on patrol and driving by when he discovered blood leaking under the club door. The bodies of Frank Hinkley and Barbara Rosenfeld were identified. They had both been shot in the head with a .45 caliber handgun. Strangely, the tavern door had been locked from the outside after the deaths. There was only 2 managers, including a man named James B. Brahman Jr., that had keys aside from Frank. And Frank's keys were found still in his hand. Also, the sheriff's deputy that found them, Zolt Dornay, was actually originally looked at as a possible suspect because, according to him, Frank had a huge grudge against him. And as a result of his aggressive investigations of illegal behavior at the club, Frank once threatened him in front of his sergeant. From a quote from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, he said, "I have felt ever since the killing that it was a professional hit and that someone might have arranged it." He was bringing way too much negative attention to the industry because of what was going on inside his club. And he's insinuating the prostitution. A 1979 Seattle Times article noted that several people in the topless club industry testified in the early 1970s before federal grand juries investigating racketeering in Seattle included 9 of Frank's associates who were killed or died under suspicious circumstances between the years of 1972 and 1976, insinuating they all had hits on them for snitching. Because snitches get stitches.
This is also true.
Facts. You learned it here, folks.
Cold, hard facts.
Without a lot of evidence, and with interests in these deaths fading as other crimes, including the Green River killings, took over the public attention, that's it. The case went cold. Until 2003, when there was a break in the case. It came when a key witness admitted that they knew something. For three decades, they had been too afraid to talk. The person responsible for the slayings, they said, was none other than James B. Brahman Jr., the manager at the Bear Club. One of the witnesses was David, a former roommate, who was a student when he first met James Brahman. He said he was living with other kids college-aged near the University of Washington when one of them, a young woman, was dating James. Brahman had just gotten out of prison and needed a place to live. He seemed like a good guy and a hard worker, so the roommates agreed to let him stay. David is still fearful and reluctant to be involved, even today. He told investigators that James B. Brahman Jr. confessed to shooting 2 people at the Bear Cave Tavern. Brahman claimed that he had a business deal that went wrong with Frank, and that's why he shot him. Sadly, Barbara was killed solely so there wouldn't be any witnesses. On the night of the killings, David had loaned Brahman his truck and a .45 caliber pistol, which Brahman said that he needed for protection after a dispute with some men, according to court documents. David said that he had no idea that Brahman might be plotting a deadly crime. According to David, Brahman told him after the double murder, he tossed his shoes out of the window of David's truck and threw the gun away. It's horrendous to me. It brings back nightmares, David said to the Seattle PI. I feel so stupid for getting involved with someone like that. Brahman's confession terrified him, and he was so shaken that he dropped out of college at the University of Washington and moved away and never saw James Brahman again. But he did tell someone at the time, his uncle, Paul Atchison, a former King County deputy prosecutor, who said he kept quiet about it for roughly 3 decades. Atchison said that he didn't tell investigators about Brahman's alleged confession until they came to him more recently. The retired lawyer said he doesn't really know why. It's unclear if he thought what David told him was confidential because he was a lawyer, but also he remembered being afraid of James Brahman. There was a confrontation in 1975 when Atchison was representing Brahman's ex-wife in their divorce. He threatened me with a gun, he said. He stuck it in my face and threatened to shoot me. Atchison said he started talking fast, telling Brahman, your chances of getting out of here are slim to none. They were at a courthouse. Brahman vowed to kill him later, and then the confrontation ended, though he remained afraid of that man for many years. The case was reopened. Investigators questioned Atchison about a different suspect, a pimp that he had represented, and that's when he told them about his conversation back in 1975 with his nephew. He said Brahman was sort of a gun for hire, someone people paid to protect them. In incredible news, and are you ready for this? David had removed the floor mats from the vehicle on the night that Brahman returned it, keeping them for 30 years. And he turned that over to detectives.
30 years?
Yeah. He probably didn't even have that truck anymore.
No.
But he took them out that night because he knew something shady happened. And he told them that there was a murder. So good on David for freaking doing that. The former student in 2005 also gave detectives the remainder of the ammunition for the .45 caliber pistol that Brahman had borrowed that night. A later FBI examination showed that the cartridge casings found at the Bear Cave in 1975 and the ammunition provided to detectives in 2005 were ejected from the same .45 caliber pistol. They were a match.
What are the odds that he kept all of this evidence?
Right? According to an affidavit filing, Brahman told another witness, also a Bear Cave manager. He told them about both of the killings. He and David did not know each other at all, but had the same story. This other witness said to police that Brahman had said he killed Frank because he had caught James Brahman stealing money from the Bear Cave. Police are suspicious of any of these stories of motives because they don't necessarily all make sense. And they were told to them it's hearsay. So that's a thing. But the suspicion was that he didn't do it alone because there was a discovery of a bloody fingerprint at the scene and it was not matched to James Brahman. A second finding was that there were 2 sets of bloody footprints at the scene. One of the sets is presumably left by James Brahman, but the source of the second set is still unknown. On February 7th, 2006, King County Sheriff's investigators filed first-degree murder charges against James B. Brahman Jr., who is now 56 years old and living in Oregon. He was questioned and held in jail until an unknown person paid 10% of his $5 million bail, freeing him from the confines of jail.
Oh what is wrong with people?
Brahman refused to talk. He told police, "They'll kill me if I do." Just 2 days later, James Brahman Jr. died, apparently of a methadone overdose. He had the medication to help with his liver cancer, in which he was dying of, and he had reportedly had only 6 months left to live. Toledo, Oregon Police Chief Don Dennison said that Brahman's death could have been a suicide, but that investigators are also looking at the possibility that someone might have compelled him to take his own life. "We have reason to suspect that the death wasn't purely voluntary," said Dennison, who also added that there were factors at the scene. 30 years after the killings, Frank Hinkley Jr. and Susie Hernandez, the children of the slain victims, got together in an emotional reunion. "Right now, there's no closure for my family and I," said Frank Jr., who was 14 at the time his father was killed. "It's not over for us yet," Susie added. She lost her mother when she was 11. "I want it to be over. I just want it to be over." Despite James Brahman's death, the King County Sheriff's Office continues to investigate the murders and the possibility that there was a second person at the Bear Cave when the killings took place. Police documents do not reveal whether James Brahman gave the name of those he feared so much that he said, "I will be killed if I tell." Police Chief Dennison said the questions about who posted his bail, who retained a Seattle attorney, and the factors present at the scene continue to raise suspicions about James Brahman's death. It may be one of those mysteries we never get to the bottom of. So, was this a murder for revenge? Or was there something more sinister at play, uncovering Seattle's organized crime ring and a cover-up? Maybe one day, with the newer forensic technology and the fact that witnesses are speaking out, we will uncover what really happened that night in November. My sources were the Seattle Times Archives, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, Seattle Weekly, and HistoryLink.org.
That's so wild.
Right?
And no justice.
No justice. And so
Man.
sad for the families, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. 11 and 14. So young to lose your parents.
Lost their parents. I guess they did pretty well after that because of the fact that there was the insurance money from the lucky lady and the towing company that came in after their father had died. And stepfather, I guess, sort of. They were engaged at the time to be married.
That makes me really sad for everyone.
But it's kind of crazy and super duper local.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you don't think of organized crime so much in Seattle, partly because it's sort of been completely disbanded now. And Frank Colicurcio Sr. passed away. I think his son went to prison for a little bit. So, but I think Rick's is still around, or the strip clubs.
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure if they're still around.
I don't know.
But they were for a really, really, really long time.
Yeah, really well known. But that family was known from like the 1960s until the late 2000s. Were known for racketeering, shakedowns, payoffs, paying off police, paying off politicians. It was crazy. And that's a whole other thing. But I wasn't going to get into it because I wanted to do this specific case. And I found this case because of a girl that posted on TikTok who said that that was her family member. that Frank Hinkley was her family member, and I saw the video and I thought, heck, I'm going to do that one. So there you go. So that was my case. We both had holiday birthdays and unsolved cases. I mean, mine was mostly solved and local. Mine was mostly solved though. They matched the gun
yours
and
is
all of that.
Mostly solved. He just never really went through the entire legal system, I should say.
And they know that there's one other person out there in this world that committed the crime. But
the way that those people were doing the life that they were living, that person probably isn't around anymore, honestly.
Or they are, and
maybe
they're also
prison.
afraid. They're also afraid because they, without saying specifically, they really thought that this was a hit. So when he got out of jail, bailed out of jail, he died 2 days later of an accidental methadone overdose. At first they were like, it was suicide, but there's other reports of him, James Brahman, telling the police that he was, it was like too much heat on his family and they will kill his whole family if he tells what really happened. So I don't know who they was, but they was definitely, he was scared. And the other people that came forward, I only have the name David. They're not going to give the name of the witness away, right? So that's probably not even his name. But the former student, we don't know who that was. And then the other witness that came forward was the second manager at the bar. So I'm sure people could find that out, but
yeah,
I was glad that they came forward and at least there's some sort of closure, but it's pretty sad that they didn't. And there's pictures of when Frank Hinkley Jr. and Susie saw each other again. They embraced each other and she said, "You look just like your dad." And he said, "You look just like your mom." And then they held each other and said, "I missed you." And it was very touching.
Cry.
It was a very touching reunion. But they hadn't seen each other in 30 years. And then after this new information, it brought them back together. So if we're going to try to find silver linings here and there, that's definitely one of them.
I love that. That's really sweet, actually.
Right? All right. So we will post pictures of all of the people involved and obviously the age progression for Autumn's case. Do follow us on Instagram at Murder Not Murdering and on TikTok at MNN.pod. And we will see you next week with something brand new. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.